It's me, Company. My mommy is the best. Super mom, love you, best. She helps mommy get those smiles back, the giggles back, and the sparkle back. You wait for the straw brush. Get ready for that super discovery and super strong.
Welcome to another exciting episode of Healing for the Soul podcast. It is your go-to resource for parents and want-to-be parents who strive for success without sacrificing connection and well-being. Each episode delivers actionable strategies and inspiring insights to help you build emotional intelligence and resilience for yourself and for your family. Strengthen relationships with yourself, your partner, and your children. Master parenting as an entrepreneur, even while raising young children. Discover life and parenting hacks that simplify your journey. Explore hypnosis and other healing modalities for a deeper transformation. This podcast isn't just about parenting and a fertility journey. It's about creating harmony, wealth, and alignment in every area of life. Let's get started.
Today is season 6, and I am your host, Robin Stoltman. And today's guest is Jonathon Aslay. He is the focus of one of America's leading midlife self-love / life coach, has expanded into a deeper essential philosophy of what it truly means to love. After losing his 19-year-old son, Connor, in 2018, Jonathon Aslay's grief led him on a soul-searching inner journey where he became aware of an often overlooked dimension of the dating conversation. He realized that the relationship process reveals the most common emotional health issue faced by many singles facing a partner, a distressing lack of self-worth, self-regard, and self-love. Today, he is on a mission to encourage both men and women to fully love themselves with his book, What the Heck is Self-Love Anyway? Packed with fun, engaging spiritual and personal growth practices. Thank you, Jonathon, for being here with our audience. I love that cover, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Robin. I appreciate that. Yeah. So the cover was, it's kind of funny. I'll share it for those that can't see it on audio, but on video later. It was just a weird idea. And then I had someone draw it up and do it. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to go with it.
It's one of those that just like, you want to look at it. Like when you look at all the books on the shelves, like in general, you want something that's quick, simple, easy to catch to the eyes. And that really is.
And I like the back cover. The back cover was taken when I was at a friend's patio and it was misty out. So it kind of gives that illusion of being in the mystic, so to speak. But enough about the book and me. What do you want to talk about with your audience?
Well, I just want to know, like, so you lost your son at 19. How did that impact you? Because that had to have been really, really hard, because I've only experienced miscarriage and I know how hard that alone is. And I know, like they've said, like child loss is child loss. You've had 19 years with your son.
Yeah.
How did that affect and shift your work?
Sure. To those that have lost a child, to those that have lost family members, the loved ones, each circumstance is unique to themselves and how we interpret that. So, to the extent, I think you said something like one loss versus another. What was interesting was, of course, beyond the shock of it, I remembered kind of getting to a place of acceptance pretty quickly. Now, I say those words, but I also spent a lot of time reflecting if I was spiritually bypassing my grief. And so just to give you some context, when I was giving I believe it was 2 weeks after he passed, we had a service and I was giving his eulogy, and I looked at all the family members and the loved ones and friends and all that stuff. And I said, I stopped and I said, look, we can grieve with suffering or we can grieve with love. And at the time I didn't know, I think I was just speaking, I was channeling in that moment when I said it, but what occurred to me was, well, he wouldn't want us to suffer. Like, I
No.
know that he would not, he want us to thrive. And it's one of the reasons why I like certain cultures that do celebratory funerals. I mean, like a really big celebration for the person's life. But I was like, what does it mean to love? And I'd been blogging about self-love in my dating and coaching practice. And I'm like, okay, this is inspiring me to really, what does it mean to love yourself? Now, a lot of people get hung up on the word self-love and, and let me just tell you, self-love isn't manicures, pedicures, that sort of thing, massages. That's self-care. And it could be wrapped in love. But to me, self-love is self-worth, self-reliance, self-regard, self-esteem, self-confidence, self-resilience, self-discipline. It's all those juicy words wrapped in love. But more importantly, for those of us who are adults, all of us has an emotional 6-year-old inside of us. I don't think any of us have graduated too far past an emotional 6-year-old. And if I'm offending anyone, I apologize. But we all have an emotional 6-year-old inside of us. And self-love is like giving that emotional 6-year-old like the adult hug and saying, I've got your back. So when I started writing the book, I was just blogging about what it means to love yourself. And in truth, anyone who purchases it, it's on Amazon. Yeah. Look, it's very simplistic. I mean, it's not like the Untethered Soul or Return to Love or a Rumi quote or anything like that. It's just a very simplistic approach to begin a process of inner healing. And it's also, hopefully, it invites in self-awareness and a self-examined life. In other words, now, here in the United States, we humans are suckling on the nipple of victim consciousness. I can't speak for other countries, but boy, are we in victim consciousness here. And I have certainly, I've operated from that place. It rears its ugly head from time to time. Self-love is taking ownership of all of the nooks and crannies of one's life and saying, well, the influences of our past might affect who we are, but how we operate going forward is self-responsibility. And that's a form of self-love, as an example. Taking care of the emotional 6-year-old is a form of self-love. Working on one's self-esteem and self-worth is a form of self-love. And by the way, Robin, we humans, I know I'm still scratching the ant's belly on this stuff. I am not here to profess any sort of enlightened being, with a halo behind me. But what I can tell you is, I've been in the pit of despair many times. I lost my identity after going through divorce and getting wiped out in the market crash of 2008. I went through a significant breakup that broke my heart. I've lost a child, and what self-love, inner work, we'll call it inner work. What that does is it builds emotional scaffolding. I think of it like scaffolding. And the more scaffolding we build from an emotional standpoint, not to block us in, but to hold us in place so we don't fall in the pit of despair. That's what I'm here to encourage for every human.
Well, I'm trying to think of what scaffolding is. Like, I'm thinking, I've heard of it, but I'm thinking it's like a foundation is like what I'm thinking of. It's like you got to build that firm foundation of where you stand, and like you're building like the wall.
Well, to some degree, yes, but I'll put an and to it, not a but. Okay. The way I envision scaffolding, it's like, I don't know if you remember, about 20 years ago, they were working on the Statue of Liberty, and there was all this scaffolding around it, so the workers could sit and work on pieces, and it was covered around this, went around it. From that vantage point, that's what I'm looking at. So, this isn't easy stuff, for the person who's listening here, I just want to say there's nothing easy about this. But what I can say is I'm inviting everyone to take a step in the direction of a self-examined life. And the more you do it, 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 I believe the happier we become.
I would agree. And then you're like, I don't need all this stuff. You come to a point where you just don't need it. Like, I saw my husband the other day in the Walmart. I'm like, I go to the store. I used to be a retail shopper, all the time, and then I realized like why I do it now. It's because I can buy something in my mind and I don't need it. But I can just buy it in my mind and say, I don't need it. Just put it back, I'm okay with that. It's like, I don't need all the stuff because I've done so much work on myself that I'm like, the stuff isn't what brings you happiness. It's being the people. It's around who you're surrounding yourself with, people, is what really truly matters in our lives. It's not all this stuff. The people got it backwards.
There's no doubt about it.
Not.
It's interesting. They've done studies, and they can go to the poorest part of India as an example. And I think it was the movie called The Happiness Project, where there was like a family of 13 living in a 100-square-foot box. They were happy. And here in the United States, if we don't get that like on an Instagram post, people are losing their shirt. And so it's fascinating. And we're all on a unique journey. Your journey is different than mine. We came here I believe, to experience emotions at its fullest. What the podcasts like yours and others is just we're voices to say, hey, there's an inner world outside of yourself, that external thing you talked about, those things and goods and all that kind of stuff. And what I believe happiness comes from, and I heard this when I was going through an introduction of spiritual psychology, and said happiness really occurs when we're in a state of love and learning. When we're learning something, it's not the material things. I own a Kia, I'd like a Ferrari. I own a 1-bedroom house, I'd like to have a 10-bedroom house. Those temporarily, dopamine-wise, makes us feel good, but genuine serotonin feel good comes from love and learning. And to that extent, I totally subscribe to it. Like when I learn something new, I'm like, God, that feels good. When I'm in a state of love for myself and others, it feels good.
And then you want everybody to know.
It's humans are thirsty for growth. They sometimes don't know it because we're caught up in the basic level of life, paying bills, that sort of thing, all the survival mechanisms. Or our ego is like, oh, I want to become, the next billionaire kind of thing. And they're driven by power and ego, which temporarily feels good. It can certainly feel good. But, I believe that genuine happiness comes when we're in a state of love and learning.
I would agree. Because it's like what I said, is that when you learn something, it's like when I first learned about hypnosis the very first time without any training yet. And I just learned about it, and I had my very first one. I'm like, when I came out of the trance, like it's equivalent to sleep. But it's like when I woke up, I was like, wow, everybody needs to experience this.
Yeah.
It was so deep just to relax. And it was the first time in my entire life I was able to relax. I was like, everybody needs this.
Yeah.
Well, then I started it as a business because I wanted to learn more. Well, then I'm like, a lot of people, they just don't want to know. I think they're just scared of how powerful they really are. And they're unaware of it, that they have the power to shift and change and do things greater than what they are now. Like they think they're doing great now. Yeah, life's comforting, it's okay. But why stop there when you can have so much more?
It's funny, as you're sharing this, I'm thinking of parking karma, parking the car and getting the close spot. And, it's interesting because I was driving to this one coffee shop every other morning for a while, and I was always getting a front spot. So I kind of adopted this parking karma. And then then one day I didn't get a spot, and I'm like, like this. And I'm like, no, I've embodied that I have parking karma. Like it's just I have no doubt in my mind, I have great parking karma. And I believe it with my soul that, the universe aligns for me so I can get, that close spot. And sometimes it doesn't work out. But my point is I've adopted that belief that I have that power. Am I manipulating the stars and all that kind of stuff? I don't know, but I'm adopting that. And there are other areas in my life where I do the same. And I believe here's the flip side of it. Reminds me of golf as an example. I used to play golf. I don't play anymore. But whenever I came to a par 3 water hole, I'd always say, don't hit it in the water, don't hit it in the water, don't hit it in the water. What would end up happening? 9 out of 10 times I'd hit in the water because I was focused on what I don't want. When I started to shift my narrative and saying, land safely on the green, land safely on the green, land safely on the green, it happened to land more on the green more often than not. So how we feel about things and what we say matters. So I'll give an example that I witnessed, particularly with the women I'm coaching and the men.
Yeah.
is that from a dating perspective, there's no good men out there. There's no good men out there. Men are all liars and cheaters and narcissists and psychopaths. And I've given up on men. If that's the state you're in, you're only going to keep seeing more of that. You know, if I live in Los Angeles, if I told you to pay attention to the white Teslas, all you would see is white Teslas driving. And I mean, you would.
Yeah, it's true.
But if I told you red Camry, you may not see as many, but you're going to start seeing them more frequently. So where we put our attention makes a difference. That's what hypnosis is about too. And to those that are listening that have given up on love, I want to really say, please don't give up. Please don't give up on love. Please don't give up on a relationship. Maybe you might need to do a little bit of reframing, a little bit of rework. That's fine. As a friend of mine once said to me, love is a risk, but it's still the best game in town. Still the best game.
It still is.
Yeah.
Well, that, and it's like, for me, for example, like I've told my husband, I'm like, if anything happens to him, I'm like, I'd have to find somebody else, but I don't think I want to go through that work. I'm probably like one of those people that are thinking, that's a lot of work to have to retrain.
Well, think about, you can look at it as a you know, you could look at it from a place of hard work, or you could look at it from a place of curiosity, joy, adventure, you know, to get to know someone new. Again, perspective means everything. I don't want to go through that work. And at the same time, you know, something worth having is worth working for, I believe.
It is. Oh yeah, very much.
Because here in the United States, we are suckling on the nipple that it's just supposed to happen freely and easily. We have this narrative that's the Cinderella narrative. Well, guess what? You know, Cinderella, you know, there were 100 other women in that town that didn't get Prince Charming, you know? So we've adopted this, oh, it should just happen by dropping my slipper. No, it requires doing work. And, you know, like the two wicked stepsisters, you know, they were bitches. Well, that means they're going to have to work on themselves to attract Prince Charming, you know?
Oh, most definitely. I agree with you. I'm enjoying this tremendously, because it's like, man, it's like, if people would just like, I like what you're saying about like how people are just sucking on the nipple of the victimhood, the victim mentality. And I think that's the most dangerous thinking. A lot of people think, like, if you ever, I don't subscribe to a lot of the women stuff online and things, is because a lot of them, oh, the man did this, oh, the man did that. Or, you know, like when parents get divorced, it's like, oh, this and this and this about the dad. It's like, well, you laid with them, you had the kids with them, look at yourself in the mirror. Like, you're the problem too. It's not just one way. That's one thing that I've never understood. It's like, you have to look, it's like you said in the very, very beginning, of how when you love yourself, you take ownership, you take responsibility for yourself and for your actions. And you're just like, forget what everybody else is. Like, you forget, I've done the work so much on myself that I'm like, you know what? I realize that I'm not the problem. There's other people around me that are causing things. It's not me. Because I've done the work so much that now I'm to the point, they need to change, not me. It's on them too, because it's like when you get to look in the mirror, you're like, okay, I know what's mine, and you take ownership. So how does this play, like when you're dating and you're finding somebody new? Because like you said, love is a risk, but playing life is a risk. It's one big game of risk.
So this is a great question, and here's where it gets a little tricky. So throughout history, you know, if we look at human pair bonding, it was predominantly survival based for a couple 100,000 years. And then, you know, sadly, women were treated as property for quite some time. And then women have certainly been dependent upon men for survival. And it's only been in the last 50-ish years, maybe 60 years, that women have been empowered. And now, you know, thankfully, they're in a position where they can support themselves. You know, there isn't the same dependency as it used to be. And not to suggest there aren't relationships where it's, you know, the man is the breadwinner and the woman's the caretaker. I'm not talking about that. But so one, women are more empowered than ever before, but we're really stuck in the narrative that relationships are built through attraction, entertainment, romance, and physical connection as the birthway to trust. Okay. If we have attraction, if we entertain each other or romance each other, mostly the man driving the bus in that regard, the man drives the entertainment and the romance and the physical connection, that somehow we will have built trust. Okay. That's like, it's a given. if we're experiencing this? Well, that's the furthest thing from the truth. Trust is not built through attraction, entertainment, romance, and physical connection. Trust is built through friendship. Friendship is about genuinely getting to know the other person, but more importantly, liking the other person for who they are, accepting the person for who they are. Okay. That's how we get to trust. Trust is built through social activities, hobbies, mutual interests, spending time with family and friends, traveling together, teamwork, building skills. That's how trust is built. But in our society, the penis will go inside the vagina well before trust happens. I mean, well before trust happens, well before you actually know whether or not you like this person. We can get attached to somebody that we barely know, thinking, oh my God, it's butterflies, it's this, is that. Well, oftentimes it's an insecure attachment to a person. What my industry needs to do, and I'm saying the dating and relationship coaches, what we need to do, and we do a really poor job at this, in my opinion, is teach friendship building skills, not how to avoid the wrong person, not how to, reject, like, in other words, we're so hyper-focused on what not to do, and in the sense, or avoidance. And it's a lot of, most dating advice is built on confidence and attraction, but it's not built on how do you make this person a friend? All we do, what dating coaches do is they say, slow down, as if it's assumed that if you slow down, you'll build a friendship. No, you have to be curious. You have to be present. You have to be grounded. You have to ask deeper questions. You got to find out, how fucked up is this other person? Because everybody's fucked up. It just depends on degrees. Okay. We're all mess.
Definitely.
We got to see, how bad is this mess? And do I even want to get involved with this mess? Does this mess fit with my mess? And that requires being self-examined, like, how fucked up am I? But no, we're delusional. We're just perfect. And we're just assuming everybody else is we'll criticize all the non-perfect people. We'll start saying there's no good people out there. And no wonder it's a clusterfuck, because we are so damn dysfunctional in the way we human bear bond. So I know I went off on a diatribe with a lot of cursing, so I hope you don't mind.
No, I don't. This is, I enjoy real talk. Just saying. So I'm enjoying this, because my thing is that I don't like all the therapists out there in general who are, I don't like all the cookie cutter people. Like, it's not a cookie cutter. Nobody's a cookie cutter. So no, I'm enjoying this for that reason. That's why I'm like, another human. You're real.
Well, and we don't teach this because we don't know how, we just, because when you think of the closest people in your life outside of family, in other words, you were stuck with, like, you think of the friend that you had, most likely it happened on an organic level. And and it happened over a long period of time. It didn't happen overnight. But in the dating realm, for those of us that are looking for a partner, if we're not intentional about the process, if we just have this, it's just supposed to magically work out. If we're attracted, we entertain each other, we romance. Men are supposed to climb to the highest room of the tallest tower. Men are supposed to do all the work. Well, men are fucked up. I'm sorry. Men are clueless. For those women out there, you're giving the job to the wrong person. I'm here to say to the women listening, you are in charge of your relationship destiny. Don't give that up to a guy. Guys are rather clueless. Women are slightly better at the emotional container, slightly better. And let me just say this, slightly better, because just because a woman can vomit her emotions and feelings doesn't mean she's saying it in a way that can be seen, heard, and understood. And yes, men are stoic and keep their mouths closed, but trust me, if you learn these communication skills, if you work on your stuff, on your childhood wounds, your adult traumas, you work on that stuff and learn how to be better communicators, it will start opening up emotional intimacy. If someone's done the work. If they haven't done the work, then you're rolling the dice. And no wonder people are burnt out, why they don't want to do, like, it feels exhausting, because they're not doing a good job vetting each other, because they're so focused on entertainment and romance and physical connection. They're not really focused on the friendship piece. Now, let me be clear for everyone listening. They're going, friend zone, friend zone, friend zone. I'm not talking about friend zone. Friend zone is what you say when you don't want to sleep with someone. I'm talking about, if you interview the happiest couples, they all say the exact same thing. I get to fuck my best friend. Please excuse the
I've
F
never,
word. In other
I've
words,
never
I'm
said
with,
that.
but you get my
Yeah,
point. I was being
yeah,
a little bit,
no,
caustic there, but it's like, I'm with my
yeah,
best friend and I get to sleep with them,
yeah.
you know?
It's like literally, like my husband, he is my best friend. He's like,
Yeah.
we're like ride or die. Like we do things together all the
Yeah.
time. Like that's what attracted us together. Was I thought he was just like me.
And by
That's
the way,
literally what it was. But obviously he isn't.
by the way, I apologize profusely for any of those that got offended by my expletives. That's what cursing is in my world. It's just simply an exclamation point to what I'm trying to say. And I'm doing it intentionally to stir things up. But
Yeah,
I'm here to just shake. I'm here to encourage. Look, if the old way was so great, why are people so miserable? If the old way was so great. Yes, in my
yeah,
parents' generation, that were born in the 1920s, excuse me, now that's 100 years ago. Yeah, it was a different world, but let's wake up to the world we're in. And it's a great time to be a human being. It is such a great time to be a woman, to be a man in relationship, and take advantage of the juiciness that emotions afford us, because life is so much more, it's like being in a wildflowers of different colors. There's all these flavors we can, it's like 31 flavors ice cream. Try it all on. Even the flavors you don't like, try it on. Anyways, I'm done being righteous here for a moment.
Well, no, I appreciate this so much because I'm just like I said, it's been 16 years, 17 years since I dated last. I'm like, I don't ever want to go down that again, not in today's society.
Then be the
It's just,
first one to leave the planet.
yeah, it's been horrible. Like now, like what you said, people are so focused on quick, they don't want to do anything, they don't want to do the actual work, and it's like, no, if you really stop and think about it, marriage is the most beautiful thing on earth. It really truly is. It's a mess. It's a whole bunch of stuff like getting to know the other person, but you stay together. You ride or drive. You either ride or die
Yeah.
together. Like you're doing this stuff together. And a lot of couples, like my husband and I, we've gone through so much loss in our life. A lot of couples, 80% of them break up after experiencing something. And it's like, but we're together still making it work because it's like we're together. It's like you said, you got to find those things that you like to do together,
There's
and
no
you
doubt. I
focus on
mean,
those, that trust building,
synergy.
like we talked about.
Yes,
It's not just
synergy.
bedroom and looks. It's
Can
not
you hear
looks.
me?
Yeah,
Oh
I
wait.
can.
Okay.
You said
I just didn't know if
energy.
my mic went out.
Yeah,
Yeah, the more aligned we are, the more passions we share, the more those types of things. Certainly, sense of humor makes a big difference. Intellectual capacity, emotional capacity, sense of humor, spiritual connection. All of those things put the odds in your favor, which is why it's good to interview people on a dating process instead of focusing on the fun. Just say, hey, do you mind if we just interview each other first just to see if we're a fit? Then we can go out and have a good time. Like that's what I'm encouraging. It's not sexy. It goes against the grain. But if the grain was so good, then why are people so miserable?
I agree with you. That's why I'm like, next time I'm making sure I get a background check and a whole bunch of checks because I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
not doing this. Yeah, I think the interview process is an amazing idea. I'm just saying, I think that is great. And then
Okay.
I also want to know if someone is listening and they feel unchosen, unseen, or too much or not enough, what is the first practical step they can take today to start loving themselves differently?
Wow. So that's a great question. What's the first thing you can do? I think I would say I take ownership of my life, would be the first thing I'd say to myself. I take ownership of my emotions. Okay. And taking ownership and just claim it. I'm taking ownership. Like the past is prologue. Whatever happened to this point prepared me for where I'm at today. I take ownership for my life. I take ownership of my emotions. God, there's so many great books. I don't even know where to start. A couple books aside my own book, What the Heck is Self-Love Anyway, which is great because towards the tail end, it recommends my reading list, and which would include The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. It would include Return to Love by Marianne Williamson. It would include watching Wayne Dyer as an example, or Abraham Hicks, or even Tony Robbins, and start immersing oneself in personal development, self-help, spiritual work. I would also begin a breath work practice. Learning how to breathe calms our nervous system. start a breath work practice, even yoga, doing sound bowls. These are just a couple things. And if you feel like you're in a lot of pain, then seek out a therapist, seek out a counselor, seek out a coach and say, I want to start living a self-examined life and I would like some help. And find a good confidant in your life, somebody in your life that is a friend, someone that's trusted, maybe a mentor, someone who's a little bit older than you. You don't have to pay, somebody that's willing to talk to you on a regular basis and say, I want to live a self-examined life. I want to look at my fears, my insecurities, my doubts, my negative patterns, my limiting beliefs, my judgments. I want to start looking at them and start living a more fulfilled, examined life. And that, I know, when, I answered your question with like 7 or 8 things, right? But I hope in the juice of that, please go back, rewind it, write it all down. If this really, if this even remotely resonates with you, rewind, write it all down, what I just shared. And certainly, reach out to someone like Robin or myself or someone that resonates with you and say, God, I'd like to talk to you just to get some perspective. And you don't have to do, years of coaching.
No.
You could do some small steps and recognize that joy does exist. It does exist, and it's not driven by money or the material things. I think the greatest joy comes from love and learning.
It definitely does. And love is the highest vibrating frequency as well.
Yeah.
It's the most. So how can people get in contact with you?
Well, thank you, Robin, for having me on. It's been fun to have this conversation with you. Hey, look, my name is listed right here. Just cut and paste Jonathon Aslay. Put it in Google. The first thing that will come up is my YouTube channel. I got a couple 100,000 subscribers. I have my podcast called What Would Love Do on Apple and Spotify. My website will come up. My Instagram will come up. My Facebook will come up. What else? My book will come up on Amazon. So first 5 or 6 things that come up, that'll be plenty. And if you want to connect with me, just go to my website, hit the contact page, write a message. My assistant will forward it to me and mention Robin Stolt. How do I pronounce your name? Stoltman. I got tongue-tied for a second. And I'll be sure to give you a little extra special attention.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jonathon. I really enjoyed this conversation today. Like I said, it's been a while since I've had real conversation. I think you know what I'm talking about. It's like you get that spitfire. It's good though. I love it.
I appreciate you as well. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Be well.
As always, I just want to thank you for your time and energy while listening to today's episode of Healing for the Soul podcast. Be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to Healing for the Soul podcast wherever you get your downloads, you're listening to your podcasts, and keep coming back for more episodes. Thank you, everyone, for your time and your energy while listening to today's episode of Healing for the Soul podcast, which also can be found on YouTube.